Thank you. Excellent. Thank you all for attending tonight's meeting of the Hammersmith and Fulham Pensions Board. We've got a number of items to get through in this, what is, as you will all know, a informal remote meeting that we've got. So myself and William O'Connell are in attendance. So we will go through the agenda, and thank you to all of the officers who have joined us for this meeting tonight. So first of all, have we got any apologies for absence? I've had apologies from Councillor Bora Kwan, and I think we may have had apologies from Neil Newton, but have we had any other apologies, Amrita?
No other apologies for absence.
No other apologies for absence. Okay, thank you for that. Let me just make sure I've got some relevant documents open. So declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest at this point? William, do you have any declarations? Okay, so there are no declarations of interest. Minutes of the previous meeting, which was held on the 9th of June 2021, so that was a few months ago now. Yeah, so as this is an informal meeting, clearly we can't officially agree these minutes until there's another formal meeting that's sort of appropriately constituted. And of course, that meeting itself was an informal meeting. But William, did you have any comments on the accuracy or otherwise of the minutes? Okay, so we've noted the minutes of the meeting on the 9th of June 2021. So the appendix is okay. So draft minutes of the previous pension fund committee's meetings. So there were a number of sets of meetings of the pension fund subcommittee that were held on the 21st of July, 20th of September, 25th of October, and 23rd of November. I think there's been an appendix that was. I think the appendix was circulated was the exempt minutes of those meetings as well. I'd suggest that we maybe note those minutes, William, unless you've got any particular comments on them. I think some of the points that were raised in those meetings are some of the stuff that's on our agenda tonight. So, having read through some of those minutes, I think that we will find that we actually cover some of the same topics.
Okay.
Okay. So, great. We will. We've noted the minutes of the previous pension fund subcommittees. So item 5, I think we're probably going to be addressed here by David Hughes. Welcome back, David.
Good Chair.
If you want to just introduce yourself very briefly for purposes of the recording, I guess.
Will do.
And we'll sort of take it from there. But I think you're giving us an update on the LGPS Pensions Admin Service, something obviously that we've been exploring in previous meetings to do with the exiting the contract with Surrey County Council and moving to Lancashire and the what are things called? The
LPPA, that's correct, yep.
So over to you, David. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone. So I'm David Hughes. I'm the Council's Director of Audit, Fraud, Risk and Insurance, and I'm also the Senior Responsible Officer for the Pensions Administration Project, which is what we're reporting on to this evening. So the report you have before you was produced just as we were going live with the new service, and it covers all the 4 key risks and 9 work streams we've been setting out to yourselves and the pension fund subcommittee for the last sort of 12 months or so in terms of the work we're doing to transfer the service from Surrey County Council to LPPA. So I can now confirm that all those work streams are complete. And what's really good is that a significant milestone was achieved and delivered on time on the 26th of January, where we transferred the new service. We started the new service with LPPA, and we successfully migrated all the data from Surrey County Council to LPPA to be able to run the service. We've had no issues with data identified in the first 2 weeks. And I think this is testament to the approach we've taken with Surrey and LPPA, where we had 4 data cuts, if you recall, in total, which we were testing throughout the mobilisation period and migration period, and also parallel payroll running, which was completed as well before go live. So I just want to highlight for you a couple of things. One of which that Surrey County Council actually been very cooperative throughout the process, given we and other authorities were exiting from their pensions administration service. And I say particularly in the last couple of months, really, when we come to the sharp end of the transfer and the migration, they were absolutely, sort of wonderful in their cooperation and support and being proactive with us and with LPPA to make sure that that went well. So the new service has gone live, along with comms to members and employers, and the member and employer portals are now live as well. And I understand, lots of members are already accessing the member portal to be able to put their data in and to register and to be able to access their data and to provide data to us going forward, which again is really positive. I just want to thank Eleanor Dennis in particular, our sort of strategic pensions manager, for the way in which she's coordinated the project over the last sort of year or so, particularly in terms of managing the relationships with Surrey and LPPA. I mean, the work she's done and her team has meant we achieved a successful transfer within the deadline we set ourselves at the end of January. So at this stage, we're sort of just 2 weeks in. It's early stages yet in terms of the program. So this isn't the end. So this is a big milestone that we've achieved in terms of how we improve the pensions administration service and how we got our data successfully to a new provider, and that they've started the service provision. So LPPA are working well with us. I mean, they're responsive to what we're asking them to do, and we're looking now at how we transition into business as usual processes over the coming weeks. Before we went live, we made sure the delegation agreements were agreed with Lancashire and LPPA, and they embed the suite of performance measures that we require, Hammersmith and Fulham and its pension fund members require, to deliver an effective and efficient service going forward, given the history we'd had previously with the previous two providers. So one of the selling points for LPPA was actually the suite and the detail of the KPIs and the KPI reporting that as a board you will now see in future meetings where we're reporting on performance against those very sort of very strong KPIs that are there to deliver good performance for pension fund members across the piece. As I said, this is sort of, we're partway on the journey now, so there are more key milestones to come, and we will be reporting to you. So we're not stopping reporting here on this. We'll be reporting going forward in terms of the next key milestones coming up. So obviously in a couple of weeks' time, we'll be running our first full pensioner payroll, which is another key milestone to make sure that all goes well. We'll be having the financial year-end processes coming before we know it at the end of March. Then we'll be into production of the annual benefit statements, and also, as we've said before, looking at further projects to enhance data quality. So we did a lot of work with Surrey and beforehand, before we migrated, but recognising working with LPPA to deliver more sort of data quality measures, including embedding the monthly returns process for employers. So again, key to this is how we get employers on board with reporting changes regularly to us, and actually be able to reconcile that data on a monthly basis so that we don't have sort of problems with data building up over time, which is the experience we'd had in the previous two sort of sets of arrangements, really. So learning from what had happened in the past, very much embedding that now as good practice into what we do going forward. So I'm happy to sort of stop there and to take questions, but just to thank you as a board for your support, and also to just recognise that we've achieved a significant milestone now with the transfer, but obviously we want to keep reporting to you in terms of progress we make on the project over the coming months.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, David, for that comprehensive but concise and also concise update. William, did you have any questions that you wanted to ask on this?
Only I wondered what sort of information you've got about people who had difficulty logging into the platform. Did you get any kind of reporting on incidents logged with the LPPA service desk or anything like that?
So I don't know if Eleanor, if you'd like to come in. I know we've had a lot of members who've actually registered on the portal, and we've had some good informal feedback from various members of staff. But if Eleanor, you've got some more on that you can provide.
Yeah, so Eleanor Dennis, Head of Pensions. So initially on launch day of the 26th of January, there were some stumbling blocks in terms of the one-time code that was issued for members both at registration and then again at login, and the lag between that code coming through. That meant there were a small number of people that locked themselves out, and then were then reaching out to LPPA to rectify that before the end of that week. So literally within a couple of days, LPP had reviewed that process and then improved it to make it much more efficient for a member. So there was only a one-time code that was issued at registration, not again at login, and that's meant a much more streamlined process and experience for the member. And since that's been implemented, the number of calls regarding that issue has actually fallen.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you.
William, did you have any more questions on this?
No, that's all. I logged in. I didn't have any trouble, but I did hear some people were having some difficulties. So pleased to hear that was picked up and resolved. Yeah.
I think it was interesting as well, Chair, that we had a few members trying to log in before the comms went out as to how to register. So there's some very keen people as well who wanted to access the service straight away. So, but yes, it's good to hear William's feedback as well. Actually, that we've had that from a number of members of staff who've commented on the ease of the process and being able to do so, which is good.
Yeah.
You'd obviously whetted their appetite for the use of the new system.
Indeed.
Before if they were jumping the gun. I mean, I think the thing to say is obviously we're very happy to hear that the transfer has been smooth, that people clearly are able to use the system and able to log in. Certainly recognise the fact the first time you have to pay the pensions and do the whole thing is going to be quite a key moment. And I guess we'll want to move now to reporting against the KPIs that we will look at as a board, as will the pensions funds subcommittee, because clearly we want. I mean, this came as something slightly out of blue, 12 or 18 months ago, whatever it was.
Yes, indeed,
that actually Surrey weren't performing in the way that we were hoping. So we're glad that we've sort of, certainly thank you to you and your team and others on this meeting who've done a really big piece of work to get us to where we are today. And we just hope that obviously the member experience. I mean, we could ask a number of questions about how the teams. Well, in fact, perhaps we'll come on to that. But certainly it's been a huge piece of work to get us to where we are today. So thanks for all the work that pass on our thanks to the work that you've done to get this done. And we hope that we will be sort of looking at like nice green colours on the dashboard when you come to KPIs in future. But we'll have to wait and see about that, I suppose.
Indeed, absolutely.
I wonder if you could just say a bit about how the sort of teams are working, because obviously you've recruited a number of people who are coming on in terms of like the retained pensions team and others. I mean, are people sort of settling into those roles now and making sure that they're able to communicate well with LPPA to ensure that the sort of things running well day to day?
Yeah, perhaps that's something Ellen would want to comment on. I mean, she's played a really important role in appointing and bringing the team on board. So, sorry, Ellen.
Thank you, David. So it's my team, William, Councillor, that Councillor Vaughan, that are actually in place to carry out the business as usual to support the organisation and our 100+ employers in their obligations throughout the fund. We do have a structure in place now with whereby those activities are being managed and we are responsive to queries from members, and my team have been able to direct signpost people to the LPPA support that's in place now. And obviously myself, they have been brilliant in doing that, whilst I have been focused on delivering the project with that transition to LPPA and the exit from Surrey.
Okay, no, thank you. I mean, and just to refresh my memory, are the KPIs that we've got in terms of the performance that they need against the various metrics sort of similar to the ones that we had with Surrey? I mean, similarly challenging at least. I mean, clearly they won't be exactly the same.
So Councillor Vaughan, we've not yet had a period by which we can report on those. So we only literally a couple of weeks since we moved to LPPA. So it'll be a very different structure and range of reportables on there, and the SLAs have changed. So at the next meeting, you will see that detailed. And I think you'll be happy with the detail that we are able to provide in a way that we weren't with Surrey.
As a rule, Chair, the targets are more challenging than we had with Surrey. Okay. But and they're much more detailed. So I think when we come to the next report, you'll see that come through in the reporting.
Okay, no, that will be great. But no, I mean, I sort of round this off by saying, big thank you to you and your teams for the work you've done on all of this. Clearly, we needed to move some reasonable pace to move from the existing contract to the new provider. So thanks for all the work. Thanks for identifying the problem. Thanks for the work that's been done to identify a new provider and for the smooth way that it's run to date. And we hope that will continue. And we look forward to discussing the KPIs when they come through for LPPA at future meetings.
Indeed.
Thanks, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So moving on. Item 6 is the Pension Administration KPI report, which I think comes back to Eleanor again. But I think that the KPIs here are in respect of the performance of. Is this the performance of Surrey in the last 3 months or so, Eleanor?
Yes, that's right, Chair.
So I think. So what I took from the analysis of this report was that they had dropped below the targets in quite a number of areas over a couple of months, partly because they seem to have reprioritised resource to helping some other people who were exiting at that time. So wasn't ideal, but of course they've now helped Hammersmith and Fulham exit, and that seems to have gone smoothly. So it's difficult to know whether it's worth commenting too much on these reports. Obviously, we somewhat unhappy that there might have been slightly uneven experience for members, but I think we realised that there's a sort of transition period, and obviously we were moving across from Surrey to LPPA. I don't know whether there's anything further you can sort of add to that.
So just for the purpose of the recording, I'll just cover what the paper entails. So it sets out the key performance indicators by Surrey County Council for the who were the pension administrators for the Hammersmith and Fulham Fund for the period October to December 2021 inclusive. Overall performance in key areas remained steady. The processing of initial death cases increased from 90 to 100%, so that was really good to see. The processing of refunds increased from 84 to 88%, and the processing of transfers out from 65% to 83%. So unfortunately, in some areas, as you've highlighted, there was a fall in performance, so namely that of the processing of transfers in, which fell from 80 to 74%, and the processing of deferred retirements, which saw a fall from 75% in October to 39% in December. The processing of initial retirements, however, for active members did increase from 62% to 85%, and also in the processing of received completed claim forms from members, which increased from 31% to 71%. So during this period, were committed to continually improving their performance and the processing of cases, but that it wasn't fully realised, that commitment, if you like, due to having to divert resources to another fund's exit and the associated activities, such as the deletion of data, which does mean that actually their systems are unavailable for a period of time. They're also going through a restructure program themselves, so they have and are losing some members of staff. So all of those factors have impacted on performance, but they were absolutely worked with us collaboratively, and both to deliver the KPIs and, as we've discussed, in terms of the exit in transferring the services to LPPA.
Yes, certainly very happy to hear that they were the cooperative and collaborative nature. I mean, clearly, had this been a set of KPIs that were in a business as usual context, we would, be scrutinising much more closely, I think. William, did you have any comments on this report? But
I didn't. No.
Sorry, thank you very much, William. No, thank you very much, Eleanor.
Thank you.
We certainly know all the comments made there. So, so the next item that we move on to is item 7, which is the Pension Fund Quarterly Update Pack. Again, it's a summary of overall performance for the quarter ended 30th of September 2021 and were asked to note the update. I don't know whether Patrick, who's the report author, or someone else wants to come in and make any sort of comments on this agenda item before we start. Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, over to you. If you've got anything you want to summarise to start off with.
Yep. So thank you, the Patrick Rowe, Pension Fund Manager. I think the one thing I really would like to highlight is the performance of the fund, especially over the 12-month period to the end of September. We saw good returns overall. Over that 12-month period, that's 14.3% overall. And the size of the pension fund has grown considerably as a result. So that's very good news for the fund. And then across the other appendices, I don't believe there's really anything that I need to comment on other than to draw your attention to the pension fund's breaches of the law log, which is a register there in the appendix. However, that's an additional policy that we have brought in and also implemented as well, which I'll touch on shortly with the governance review of the 32 recommendations. However, that is a new addition to this report in itself. You'll note that there's nothing on there at the moment, which is good, but that's there anyway to look for in future. I don't believe there's anything else that I'd like to particularly draw your attention to, so I'm happy to answer any questions you might have from there.
Thank you very much, Patrick, for that introduction. Very helpful. William, did you have any questions you wanted to ask on this?
I don't. Thanks, Rory.
Thanks very much. Yeah, so I mean, thank you, Patrick, for presenting this report. I mean, the things I took from it are that, as you say, the performance seems to have been good in a way that means that, according to the sort of summary, the sort of pension fund is sort of, you know, maintained a sort of 94% funding level. Always interested to see some of the changes in the sort of balances in terms of, I suppose, active members remain similar. Deferred beneficiaries changed, I guess. Presumably that might have been people resigning. There were quite a few more pensioners seem to have come on the books in that it went up by a bit. So I think that whilst the value of the assets grew, the liabilities also grew in a way that sort of kept the deficit around the same sort of same amount and same proportion, really. But it seemed to be it's quite interesting. I mean, I guess the one thing that we were sort of working towards now is going to be this triennial valuation, which I think is going to be done this year, as I understand it. So then we'll get an update on exactly what the sort of the actuaries think of the value of the fund versus the liabilities, and obviously I guess that will feed through to contributions and stuff from the next, so the financial year after next onwards, I suppose.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Great. Okay. Well, no, I think we sort of certainly note that. I mean, also, I think the ESG report is always very interesting picture. Clearly, one that we are interested in making sure that is shared more widely as well for the information that it gives. And clearly, there's a lot of information that I guess, sorry, with the Deloitte report, the pension fund subcommittee probably goes through some of that stuff in more detail with Deloitte and others, does it, Patrick?
Yes,
the details of the
certainly
of the investment performance, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So they have the same opportunity to ask questions. However, that of course is somewhat more their focus there. And indeed they went through that with Deloitte there, and asked some of the questions there. Yes.
Okay. No, thank you very much, Patrick. So I think we will certainly note the fact that the performance seems to be holding up, and so yeah, looking forward to the triennial valuation. So thank you very much, Patrick, for preparing and introducing that report.
Thank you, Chair.
Let me find the next item on the agenda. So I think actually we're back to you. Item 8, I think we're back to you again, Patrick, on the governance log of recommendations. I think this was the 32 recommendations that came up from the independent consultant report that we discussed for the first time, I think 6 or 7 months ago, whenever it was at the last meeting. We're recommended to note this, but I wonder if you've got any comments that you can make to introduce the report.
Yes, so that's correct. This one you will have seen this before. It was sort of back in 2019 that this was commissioned, and then the initial consultant report was published in early 2020. We have since then implemented a number of those recommendations. There were 32 recommendations that came out of that report. And we've been working hard to make good progress on all of those. We have 19 of those implemented now, and another 7 have been commenced. And indeed, since this report was pulled together and published, actually, I think we've managed to get a couple more of those implemented. So really good progress on that so far. I think we're quite happy as a team, and with the very significant workload that the pensions admin team has had with the transition from Surrey to LPPA. I think the final recommendations there will start to be ticked off as well in the coming month or so. So we should have all 32 addressed shortly. Happy to open up to any questions at that point.
Thank you, Patrick. David, sorry, I think did you want to go?
Yeah, just to confirm, Chair, that obviously there are a number of items that do relate to the pensions administration, and we've sort of been clear with the board before and the pension fund subcommittee that obviously the implementation of the new system and service took priority. So obviously once we get through and into business as usual, we'll then be obviously working to progress those actions that are there for the pensions administration service and for the internal audit work that my internal audit team will be carrying out, which also we're planning and working with LPPA to see what assurance we can place on their internal audit work and their internal audit programme, which again we'll bring more information to you on at a future meeting.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I think that sounds right. William, did you have any comments on this report or questions on this report? No. Okay. No, thank you. I mean, I think I've noticed elsewhere that you probably actually, as Patrick mentioned, covered off a couple of these, a couple more of these, because I think the pension fund subcommittee has now co-opted a non-voting employee representative. I think I read elsewhere in the pack. So actually, you may have done more than is actually noted here. And as you say, I think now that you've got the LPPA contract up and running, then I guess hopefully to the extent that some of them are dependent on that, hopefully you'll be able to make further progress. I guess we'd be looking to, obviously for you to make progress as soon as possible to address the recommendations. It looks like there's been progress toward, a lot of them have been completed, and obviously progress has been made in a number of the areas. I mean, I think a number of them are probably more for the pension fund subcommittee, and I'm sure that they're asking you stuff about them. All right. Yes. I mean, I guess I think you've got some updates here. I mean, for example, I suppose the question about quality of data and records is something that we are keen to ensure that they're in good service. So there's the whole thing about the fund actuary should be fully appraised of the situation relating to the state and quality of the data records. That sounds like quite a significant one, but it looks as though you've commenced some discussions on that. I wonder if you could just give us a bit more of an update on item 28.
So I know Ellen will come in with more details as well, but I know there'll be ongoing discussions with the actuaries as well to make sure that they're appraised of the situation. They were aware of the situation with Surrey and the work that we're doing in terms of data improvement prior to migration and what we'll be doing after migration.
Yes, thank you, David. So we were going to work, there's going to be some, we're going to work with the new actuaries as opposed to the old actuary, because as you know, we have switched actuaries during this period as well, just this very busy period of not just exiting from Surrey, not just moving to LPPA, but also changing actuaries. And that has had challenges on the administration side, and there's some work to do in engaging with them on that. So I do need to caveat what Patrick has said in terms of that timeline. Is it's not something that I can commit to that we will be able to deliver, because we're still working through to get to business as usual with LPPA. It's not as straightforward as that's the launch date, that's it, everything's sewn up, and we can then move on to other activities. There's still a hell of a lot of work to do before we get to that just running through the BAU period, and that includes agreeing projects. So we've got McLeod, we've got some data cleansing to do in-house with LPPA, as well as some GMP work. So there's a plan of activity that actually these recommendations need to fall into the priority of. So we need to manage that carefully, as opposed to committing unrealistically to some of those activities and the timelines.
No, thank you very much for that explanation, and we look forward to obviously you'll be working away at them, and we will be no doubt reviewing them at a future meeting.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So yeah, thank you for the thanks again for preparing the report and the summary. Patrick, we've sort of made a few comments, and we note the report.
Thank you.
So thanks very much. Oh, I think you're up again, Patrick. It's the so item 9 is the draft pension fund annual report and statement of accounts for the year ended 31st of March 2021. I mean, I note that obviously this was signed off and submitted back in the autumn, but and obviously we haven't met since then. But I wonder if there are any sort of initial comments that you wanted to make on this report.
Thank you, Chair. You're right. This was sort of presented to the pension fund committee. However, the accounts themselves, we still haven't had those signed off by external audit. But I think we're very, very close in that respect. They have had some resourcing issues, which has caused some delays on the external audit side of things. However, we have done everything that we can do. We've responded to all of their queries at this stage, so they are sitting there just waiting to be signed. So I think we're in a good position. We're quite happy with the statement of accounts themselves, but also the annual report. And I'm happy to take any questions you might have on either of those.
Okay. William, did you have any comments or questions on the annual report?
I don't. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just check. This is our final item. Okay. No, well, thank you for preparing. Obviously, they're always a comprehensive. I mean, there's a huge amount of information in there which sort of goes through the governance of the fund and the investment, and it sort of is transparent, including outlining the various members of the fund. I didn't have any particular questions or comments myself, so I think obviously we're, as per the previous item, pleased to see that the fund's in a reasonable position in terms of its funding statements, and sort of look forward to working with you and the new actuaries in terms of the triennial valuation that will come up later this year. I mean, sorry, this may be a general question. It's not necessarily on the fund, this issue as such, but what's the likely approach of the new actuaries to looking at the, well, presumably the assets and liabilities of the fund clearly, and to doing their valuation? Because I think from some of the training that we've received in the past, it's been clear that certain groups of actuaries take slightly different approaches, and I wondered if you've got any sort of heads up as to the particular approach that's going to be taken by the new actuaries in looking at the fund.
Chairman, shall I take that one?
I think, yeah, I'll hand over to Matt with that one.
Yes, yeah, of course, please.
Evening, Chair. Evening, everybody. Matt
Good evening,
Dawson, Strategic Finance Manager. So, what you tend to find now, I mean, on a traditional valuation, you'd say that liabilities probably increased because yields have been so historically low recently. I mean, we keep hanging our hat on the bottom of the bond market, and it just hasn't happened. Now, we have seen an uptick in bond prices since December. So it's not that bond prices are a lot higher than we were expecting. It's just that this recovery and the sort of the Omicron settling down has just put investor confidence in one direction, and we've seen gilts now roughly 0.5% plus on what we would have done in the autumn. So on a traditional timeline, you would expect that to be asset growth, but liabilities sort of have grown in line with it. What you tend to find now, and this is amongst the 4 firms of consulting actuaries, it's these days it's a negotiation. So actually, your professional advisors, your consultant, and your new independent advisor officers, it's more of a collaboration as to what is your view of the future. But yeah, traditionally, Hymans Robertson were a very conservative, with a small c, actuary that for a long time they used a gilt plus method. Barnett Waddingham, your previous actuary, were quite ambitious. So Barnett Waddingham for a very long time have linked that discount rate to your asset allocation. But all 4 of them have sort of, it's very much the modern way of the actuary to work with the client now. They do have standard assumptions, but for funds such as yours, well governed and where there's good quality financial advice, it's going to be a discussion.
Thank you very much, Matt. I think on that note, I didn't have anything further, and I think that William didn't have any further comments. Let me just check what we're meant to be doing. I think we'll just note it on. Clearly, not being asked to do anything other than this report. So yeah, so thank you very much, Patrick, again for your presentation and for giving us some insight into the accounts. We look well. Obviously, we note the point particularly about the external audit being close to being finalised, and hope that will take place as soon as practical. So thank you very much for your input, Patrick, and we note that report.
Thank you, Chair.
Amrita, I don't know whether we have to go on to.
No, Chair, we don't need to go into an exempt session.
Fine. Okay. In which case, I think that is probably the end of the meeting. So I think this is probably the final meeting of the Pensions Board for this council term. So it will reconvene after the in one shape or form after the local elections that will take place in a few months' time. So can I just thank for this meeting everyone who's prepared the papers and come along to present, and for all the work that they've done in both preparing those papers and over the last years. And in terms of the committee as a whole, can I just similarly so thank William and other members of the committee for their participation over these since 2018, and to clearly thank as well Amrita, who's been the sort of secretary to the committee for some years now. So thanks all for your participation tonight and over the past few years, and we will someone will reconvene in a few months' time. So thank you all, and good night. Thanks for participation tonight.
Thank you, Chair.